ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Cotonou. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Here are the top stories. Youths in the Gambia stage first protest demanding release of detained peers and transparency on Jammeh asset sales.
If these youths are not released, if the list is not released, we will be here. If they come here to arrest us in front of the National Youth Parliament, so be it. Now we know that there's something really wrong in this country.
Senegal's High Court of Justice to prosecute former ministers of Macky Sall's administration following National Assembly approval.
What we are just going to advocate is that we want it to be fair and to be done in a most suitable way. Those people who are guilty, we ask them to refund the money. And if you are not guilty, we let them move.
And opposition parties in Mali postponed a major demonstration against their dissolution by the state. Details of these stories and more are coming up shortly.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
I am Sankule Janko, and many thanks for staying tuned to our broadcast. Newslink begins in the Gambia, where tensions are running high as dozens of young people have taken to the streets for a second consecutive day, demanding the immediate release of fellow youths arrested on Thursday. This comes after the police arrested members of a group known as Gambians Against Looted Assets Gala, who staged a peaceful protest demanding transparency and accountability on the sale of former President Yahya Jammeh's assets. The police charged the youngsters for unlawful assembly after they went ahead without a permit. Augustine Coley has more in this report.
The protests erupted following a shocking investigative report detailing corruption, conflict of interest, and lack of due process in the sales of assets belonging to former President Yahya Jammeh. The report has sparked outrage, particularly among young Gambians who say they feel betrayed and silenced. On Thursday, a group of youths staged a peaceful demonstration demanding transparency and clarity on the sales of the assets, but police moved in, arresting several of them. That crackdown has only intensified the protests. Today, demonstrators returned in even larger numbers, staging a sit-in in front of the National Youth Parliament. Many say they will not leave until their arrested peers are freed and the government comes clean about the sale of the former president's assets. Kamo Fati is a youth leader and one of the organizers of the Day 2 protest.
This will be a peaceful protest in front of the National Youth Parliament until this place is filled up. We will not go and disturb traffic and all of those things, but we will march here. After Friday prayers, I will be here. If these youths are not released, if the list is not released, we will be here. If they come here to arrest us in front of the National Youth Parliament, so be it. Now we know that there's something really wrong in this country.
The youth leader said the youths are defiant and will continue to protest until their demands are met. Meanwhile, the whereabouts of the arrested youths is not clear as authorities keep silent treatment on the matter. Mamadou Jane is a Gambian journalist who was covering the protests, and he tells us the latest development on the protest and the whereabouts of the young people.
The second protest gathered even more young people, including students, because yesterday 2 students were arrested, part of the protest yesterday in Banjul. So today we saw other students coming out to join other young people to stage the peaceful procession. So while we were at Banjul yesterday, before they transferred them from the police headquarters, we were told they were given 2 charges. They said the first charge was unlawful assembly and the second charge was not known to them.
Authorities in the Gambia have yet to respond publicly to the growing calls for the immediate release of the arrested young people who remain defiant, determined to have their voices heard.
Augustine Coley with that report. Meanwhile, human rights organizations in the Gambia are demanding the immediate and unconditional release of the individuals detained by the police following the protests on Thursday, May 8. Here in Senegal, 5 former ministers from the administration of former President Macky Sall will soon be tried by the High Court of Justice. The decision follows a major vote in the National Assembly on Thursday, initiated at the request of the Ministry of Justice. The first 5 former ministers of Macky Sall's regime who to appear before the High Court of Justice are Mustafa Job, Amadou Mansour Faye, Aissatou Sophie Gladima and Salimata Job. They are accused of embezzling funds allegedly worth several billion CFA francs disbursed to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. This move marks a critical step in the new government's push for accountability and transparency. Amadou Samb is the executive director of Budget Senegal, one of the main organizations that have been calling for accountability of the COVID-19 fund.
Since 2022, our organization, along with 14 organizations, including ONG Tradi, Forum Civil, and Lex Africa, we were the first to say that we need accountability about COVID fund. Number 2, we didn't stop there. We did a report on accountability on COVID fund management, and we have found all the mismanagement of funds. So we very early thought about this. So we are very glad that the government has taken the decision. And what is normal is that we cannot prosecute ministries like this. At that time, we didn't have a device that can sue the ministers. That's the reason why the accountant and the manager in the ministers were prosecuted. And now we have a device that is called Haute Cour de Justice that have been created and able to follow the ministers. So we are glad to start this, and I think accountability start like this. So what we are just going to advocate is that we want it to be fair and to be done in a more suitable way. Those people who are guilty, we ask them to refund the money. And if you are not guilty, we let them move.
Amadou Samb is the executive director of Budget Senegal. Crossing over to the Sahel region, in Mali, political parties have announced the postponement of their demonstration initially scheduled for this Friday to protest their dissolution by the transitional government. According to organizers, the protest was postponed after reports emerged that certain members of the National Transitional Council had allegedly incited violence in relation to the planned event. The decision comes amid political tensions and concerns over public safety. The demonstration was intended to oppose the government's recent suspension of all political parties and association activities. Christopher Atecho has the details.
In a statement issued on Thursday, the Conference of Presidents of Political Parties justified this postponement by the cause for violence made by 2 members of the National Transitional Council. The statement accuses the 2 members of issuing threats and insults through videos shared on social media, without disclosing the names of the individuals. However, the political parties say they reject all forms of violence and planned killings in order to preserve human life in the country. Regarding their dissolution and the suspension of their activities, the political parties denounce the violation of the constitution and measures that they describe as anti-democratic and the destruction of liberty. As a reminder, the Mali authorities have suspended political activities for reasons of public order. Although political parties have contested against this decision by initiating legal proceedings for its cancellation. As the political climate remains tensed, some political leaders have been arrested in the country. Al-Hassan Abba, Secretary General of the Conventions for Development Party, was arrested at his home by police and taken to an unknown destination. The reasons for his arrest are not yet known.
Christopher Atichu with the details of Aliu Cham's report from Bamako.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Similarly, in Togo, the political class continues to denounce the parliamentary system of government which came into force May 3, 2025. The Don't Touch My Constitution front does not recognize the new constitution even after the swearing in of the president of the council and the election by the deputies and senators of the new president of the republic. It held a meeting Wednesday, May 7, 2025 in Lomé to denounce what it considers to be a serious breach of the constitutional principles of the government in place. Abdullah Hassan has the details.
According to the Don't Touch My Constitution collective, the regime change is an institutional coup d'etat. Kao Acholi is the second rapporteur of the collective Don't Touch My Constitution.
On May 3, 2025, the Fonya-Singbe regime committed the ultimate sacrilege against the Togolese popular sovereignty by imposing this so-called new constitution against the Togolese people. Mr. Fonya-Singbe is not only plunging Togo into institutional disorder, but he is also tearing apart the fundamental social contract between the people and the state. Today, two constitutions are in conflict. The one that the Togolese people overwhelmingly approved at 98%, and the one that a desperate regime is trying to impose by coercion. Only the constitutional referendum presents the sovereign legal act by which a people freely grants itself a new constitution.
The movement therefore calls for a broad mobilization of the population to oppose the change of constitution and regime.
The front Don't Touch My Constitution calls on all defenders of freedoms to be awakened, to express themselves publicly, and to act. The time has come to transform our indignation into concrete and determined mobilization that continue this sacred fight for our freedoms and our dignity, and complete our historical mission now that the walls of tyranny are cracking from all sides.
As the state prepares to establish a new government, Togolese forces continue to mobilize for a return to the old constitution, which guarantees the right to vote to all citizens.
A report from Sylvie Guadrago in Lomé, voiced by Abdoulaye Hassan. To more political developments in Côte d'Ivoire, the trial between Valerie Apo and Tidjane Cham, president of the PDCI, resumed on Thursday, with each party presenting its arguments in writing. Valerie Apo, a former official of the PDCI, reiterated her position, contesting her expulsion from the party and questioning the legitimacy of party president Tidjane Cham. She is seeking to have her expulsion annulled, claiming that the PDCI authorities who enforced this measure were not authorized to do so. As a reminder, Cham is so far the party's presidential candidate, despite being removed from the provisional electoral list. In terms of Tidjane Cham's legitimacy, she cites the Ivorian Nationality Code, arguing that he was French at the time he was elected party leader due to his French nationality. In contrast, the PDCI's lawyers presented additional documents in the proceedings. They contend that the argument regarding Tidjane Cham's nationality is baseless, as he was born with dual nationality, having French nationality from his father and Ivorian nationality from his mother. The case has been adjourned until May 15th, when the oral pleadings will take place. Meanwhile, the Independent Electoral Commission, IC of Côte d'Ivoire, refused 12 million euros from the international partners as financial support towards the October 2025 presidential election. According to media sources, this amount was offered by the European Union and the United Nations Development Programme to support the organization of the election, particularly in logistical matters such as the centralization of results. Other countries such as Japan were also among the potential contributors. Imo Edet has the details.
This decision follows discussions between Côte d'Ivoire's Independent Electoral Commission, chaired by Magistrate Ibrahim Kubet Coulibaly, and the donors involved, while the Ivorian government declined funding for the direct organization of the election. It agreed to redirect this financial aid to civil society initiatives, particularly by funding NGOs. However, this rejection of international financial assistance is not a new stance for Côte d'Ivoire. A similar situation occurred in 2020 when the country refused international funding from major donors, including the EU and UNDP, for previous elections. This refusal reflects the Ivorian government's stated desire for greater sovereignty and increased budgetary responsibility. The government has allocated 85 million euros in the 2025 budget to cover all election-related expenses. However, the list of potential candidates remains uncertain. President Alassane Ouattara has not yet clarified his position, and several opposition figures such as Tijan Cham, Laurent Gbagbo, Guillaume Soro and Charles Blegrede are currently excluded from the electoral process. Nevertheless, supporters of these opposition leaders are intensifying their effort to ensure that these political figures are reinstated on the electoral list.
Imo Edet reporting there. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Youths in the Gambia stage fresh protests demanding release of detained peers and transparency on Jammeh asset sales. Senegal's High Court of Justice to prosecute former ministers of Macky Sall's administration following National Assembly approval. And opposition parties in Mali postpone a major demonstration against their dissolution by the state. Still ahead in the news, we also have guests and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now, Ghana's ability to respond to regional security threats has been significantly enhanced following the donation of 14 armored personnel carriers, APCs, from the United States to the Ghana Armed Forces. The high-grade vehicles handed over during a ceremony at Boma Camp in Accra are expected to play a pivotal role in strengthening national defense, especially in counterterrorism and peacekeeping operations. WDR's Nadi Ditete reports.
With growing instability in the Sahel region posing an increasing threat to Ghana's northern borders, the donation of 14 armored personnel carriers APCs by the United States comes at a critical moment. These vehicles are expected to significantly enhance Ghana's capacity to deter, respond to, and contain cross-border threats, particularly from extremist groups operating in the region. The official handover ceremony was held at the 153 Armored Regiment at Abuga Square in Burma Camp, where U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Her Excellency Virginia Palmer, formally presented the vehicles to Ghanaian authorities. In her remarks, Ambassador Palmer stressed the strategic importance of the donation, noting that it directly supports Ghana's growing role in maintaining national and regional security. She described the move as a demonstration of the United States' commitment to reinforcing Ghana's position as a key pillar of stability in West Africa. Ghana's Minister for Defense, Dr. Edward Omane-Boamah, who received the equipment on behalf of the Ghana Armed Forces, emphasized the long-term security value of the vehicles, promising their effective deployment and maintenance.
These highly capable, mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicles will enhance troop protection, mobility, and effectiveness in counter-terrorism operations and internal security efforts, including the fight against illegal mining. Galaxy. They are not only assets for national defense, but instruments for regional peace and global solidarity.
The move not only strengthens Ghana's frontline defenses, but also deepens the country's security cooperation with the U.S., providing a timely buffer against emerging threats in West Africa's volatile security landscape. For WADR, Nadi Ditete, Accra.
In a major step toward digitalized inclusion, Liberia's Universal Access Program is restoring hope and connectivity to rural communities through a joint effort. The Liberia Telecommunications Authority, the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications, and mobile network operators have reactivated a once-abandoned telecom tower in Suenmeka, Boma County, the western region of the country. The move has reconnected thousands of residents who had long been cut off from mobile and internet access. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker has the rest of the details.
The reactivation of the tower marked more than just a technical augury. It was a moment of transformation for the people of Suenmeka. At the launch, residents gathered in celebration as 50 mobile phones were distributed to kickstart their access to the network. For many, it was their first experience of reliable mobile and internet connectivity. The introduction of Starlink internet terminals further expanded the reach of data data services, bringing even the most remote parts of the region online. Acting Commissioner for Public Affairs and Universal Access at the LTA, Patrick Hunter, emphasized the human impact of the project.
We're here with the Lone Star MTN representative. We're here with a technician from Starlink Satellite Internet Group, team from Accra, Ghana, who we see working down there on this site. This place has been suffering from coverage.
Community leaders echoed their sentiment, noting how a restored access will revolutionize communication, education, commerce, and emergency response in bombing and Grand Kitman counties.
We are happy. What happened to all today? All the authority and all the citizens, they're happy today.
Thank you for the network. We were already in darkness. To even refer patient was very hard. Only one will you see here, orange. And where the amulet is, now Lone Star. So the girl Lone Star can be as one of the patient will be out here with me, Jabi Kori.
But I want to say a big thank you to Laboratory Communication. Today is a historical day for the people of Swanbeka District, and we are overwhelmed.
With a clear roadmap and sustainable funding in place, the LTA's initiative is not only closing the digital divide, it is opening up new economic and social opportunities for Liberia's rural population. For Newslink on WADR, I'm Abraham Parker reporting from Monrovia.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment of Newslink takes us back to the Gambia, where human rights organizations are demanding the immediate and unconditional release of at least 70 individuals detained by police following a protest on Thursday, May 8. Organized by the group Gambians Against Looted Assets, GALA, the protesters were calling for greater transparency and accountability in the sale of former President Yahya Jammeh's assets. However, the Gambian police authorities did not approve the group's official request to stay the protest. Our guest is Mahdi Jabate, Executive Director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Justice and Human Rights and Justice. He speaks about the situation.
Until today, 5 years later, Gambians have not been informed about how these assets were disposed of. The fact is they were disposed of, landed properties, vehicles, aeroplanes, livestock, bank accounts, so many things, money at home and abroad have been disposed of through means that the government has not come to transparently declare how this was done. They sold some things, how they were sold. They allocated pieces of land to individuals or businesses or institutions. And, so there isn't transparency as to how these materials, items or assets were disposed. And that is what the call is all about. So the police refused these people to protest and, on no grounds, because the right to protest is guaranteed by the government constitution. We have a Public Order Act which requires that if you engage in a protest that includes or involves a procession and the use of a loudspeaker, you need a permit from the police. But in this instance, these protesters did not engage in any procession. They did not use any loudspeaker.
The police denied the request made by this group of Gambians for their peaceful assembly, yet they still protested. What do you make of that?
They did not give any reason why they should not give a permit. So, which is unlawful and unprofessional on the part of the police, because the police should have known what, are the requirements of a permit. What situations of protest require permit. Number one. Number two, if they are going to refuse a permit, the police as an institution, as a professional institution, should provide reasons, tangible reasons, why they are not given a permit. So it means the police, in any case, they are not just interested to allow this protest to take place. And, this country does not belong to the police. Human rights doesn't belong to the police. The police have a constitutional obligation to defend, to protect human rights. So what is required of them is to protect human rights. Apparently, they are not interested to do that. And so whether the period is too short or too long, it really doesn't make any difference. So that even if the period is too short, all that the police could have done was to say, this period is too short for us, and have a conversation so that you can, see whether to reschedule the protest, all in the interest of ensuring that the right to assemble and human rights in general is enjoyed by citizens. The police is not here to deny rights, but to make citizens enjoy it and to facilitate that enjoyment as much as possible.
Now, finally, sir, as a human rights activist, how would you describe the arrest of those Gambians who gathered on yesterday?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This is coming 9 years after Gambia ended a brutal dictatorship, during which to merely protest like this will cost one's life. And that was why Gambians, fought hard to remove that dictatorship. So to still have a situation where Gambians are denied to protest is very disheartening, and it only indicates that until now, Gambia is yet to have a government or public officials who are committed to democracy, to good governance, to human rights, and to the rule of law. So that right now we are monitoring the situation since in the morning. We have noticed the same old dictatorship tactics where they arrest people in one place and then transport them far away to another location and hold them there incommunicado. So right now, they have arrested 17 or more protesters. They have separated them into little groups and then taken them to different locations, detention centers that activists have been going around to locate them, and they cannot locate them. And that is what's happening in the Gambia during the dictatorship, leading to enforced disappearances and, summary executions and so on. For me and for my organization, we are hugely concerned. We've been providing more or less weekly, hourly updates as to what is happening, and we are monitoring the situation, but it is very disheartening. And what all this means at the end of the day also is that this government wants to protect corrupt officials and to silence voices of transparency and accountability.
Madi Jabate is the executive director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. Well, in sports, defending champions Senegal kept their title defense alive with a hard 4-2-0 victory over DR Congo in their final Group C match at the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations in Swiss on Thursday. Goal from Secham Ibrahim Jeng secured a crucial win that sees the young Teranga Lions advance to the quarterfinals as runners-up, edging out DR Congo on goal differences. Ghana's 1-0 win over Central African Republic in the simultaneous group fixture meant that only a win would suffice for Senegal, who came into the match with just 1 point from their opening 2 games. The results means Senegal finished second in Group C on 4 points behind leaders Ghana and will now face Group D winners in the other quarterfinals. Elsewhere, Senegal are through to the semi-finals of the FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup Seychelles 2025 after a last-second 4-3 extra-time victory over Italy in a thrilling clash at the Paradise Arena in Victoria on Thursday. Senegal will face Belarus in the last 4 on Saturday as they seek to reach the finals of the Global Showpiece competition for the first time. Their previous best finish was 4th in 2021. And in Europe, Manchester United secured a spot in Europa League final after an impressive 3-1 win over Atletico Bilbao on Thursday night. United won 7-1 on aggregate following a 3-1 away win last week. The victory means Manchester United will now face fellow Premier League side Tottenham Hotspur in the Europa League final. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms X and Twitter and Instagram at WDR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Sankule Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia. Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah